because postmodernism has been so politicized. It refers to many things that are probably just bullshit, and also many things that are very true and valid and apparent all around us. So it's a hard thing to define because there's so much disputed around its definition. And it frankly is not like modernism in the sense that it does not, you cannot attribute it to forces and developments in society that are as concrete as we see with the modern era of monarchy and aristocracy subsiding, of representative democracy reviving, of a new middle class of literate people who demand art, who demand culture, and they are not interested in endorsing an aristocratic class. And this with consumerism and capitalism, you see that the ideas that we associate with modernism are still more salient than the ideas we associate with postmodernism. We are not in a very fundamentally different paradigm. So, with postmodernism, think of New York City. Think of the bed of nails that is Manhattan, and compare it to a pre-modern city. Compare it to Moscow even, as you could see the sort of centralized government in the urban plan of Moscow. But look at any pre-modern city, look at Paris, look at Rome. We have the major institutions becoming the center points of an otherwise uniform city, a style, a convention that everyone adheres to. And as they adhere to it, they develop a sense of membership in it, a sense of belonging in society, a value in society, to the extent that they cooperate with this convention. And now, looking back at Manhattan, we have gone over and developed over such beautiful landmarks and built new landmarks, and all of these aesthetic values competing against each other from different time periods, and all jostled together. It's often beautiful, but it's often very ugly too. And perhaps in its latest phase, in the past few decades, it is at its ugliest in Brooklyn, in these old beautiful neighborhoods where these beautiful brownstones have a uniform convention that they adhere to, and then suddenly a modular, often looking disposable square building put in its place. So postmodernism, it's most visible in the city in this manifestation that I just described. But it really has to do with the coexistence of different ideologies, different motivations, different interests competing with each other for your attention, trying to appeal to your most superficial impulses as a consumer, perhaps. And so, as postmodern people, we have had to deal with this. This is developed all around us. We have to be able to distinguish the interest behind an advertisement and a painting or a movie that may have some propaganda that may be just aimed at making a dollar. So we have to be able to distinguish these different motives, these different ideologies, and therefore we have to accept that that postmodernism is a real thing. So despite whether or not you disagree with the values that's presented with it, you still have to deal with it. And one way in which this is done, in my view, has to do with exercising our visual muscle to see beyond the sort of cult of utility behind things, the function behind things. And this is part of what artists do. in the refinement of their work. So you can draw associations with nature directly in your work, as is often done, and that's one example of this. And the other way has to do with the development of an artist's work over time, the slow incremental approach towards an impulse felt deep within inside, and it's a response to the chaotic world. It's a way of putting out the mess that you take in a coherent way. And by cultivating art, a sense of contemporary art, by following contemporary art, by following what you like, you sort of develop a mutual awareness of this relatability with another individual that you otherwise wouldn't have in normal interpersonal relations. So by developing a taste in contemporary art, you build a repertoire of sensation, and this sensation comes from so many different sources that is, again, sedimented, accumulated over time through the art that we've seen in the past. We sort of build sensations around associations, and we accumulate these associations. Suppose you really love old Western films. You love Sergio Leone and you love Clint Eastwood and you love the way it all feels. You love the idea of being an outlaw or a bounty hunter and in inhabiting untamed land. You really love romanticism, one might say. You love romantic ideas and the narratives that we fantasize this through the genre of Western film can be traced back. You have people like Frederick Remington who painted the West. You have all these landscape painters that sort of captured this romanticism, this spirit of adventure in the West, and that can be traced back further in European art. Man's relationship to nature as the city sort of develops around in more and more advanced ways. So we have an accumulated sense, we have an accumulated sensation. It developed a long time. We sort of can feel what this feels like, what a Western film feels like. And it has to do with a lot of different associations, a lot of different sensations that are grouped together. Develop your own sense of taste, your own sense of curiosity, and you pursue this slowly in a way that you can't really see the future, but besides its most immediate sense, you sort of incrementally approach an impulse, something you feel inside you that makes this chaotic world more coherent,